Today we're going to cover the 6.03 lesson with new Muslim empires. We're going to do similar to what we did with 6.02. I'm going to go through the lesson and the readings as best as I can. There will still be some stuff you need to complete on your own, but I want to give you this in lieu of the fact that we are not meeting live because of my one-on-one sessions. So let's go ahead and get started. What you see here is your study guide. Or the student guide from the 6.3 lesson. You need to make sure that you have that and that you fill it in as we go along, because this is going to help you do well on the checkpoint, but also on the unit test and final exam. So this is an excellent tool for you to use as you're getting your notes together. All right, this is the first page of the 6.3 New Muslim Empires lesson. Actually, this is the first page. Sorry about that. So it states, with the defeat of Constantinople in 1453, the last remnants of the Byzantine Empire fell to the Muslims. Over the next 2 centuries, the Ottoman Empire became the largest of its time, stretching from the Algiers in North Africa to the eastern edge of Mesopotamia. To the east of the Ottoman Empire, 2 great Muslim empires arose, the Safavids in Persia and the Mughals in India. You need to focus heavily on this lesson. The Ottoman Empire is something that has such a huge impact on world history for several hundreds of years. You're going to see it on your final exam. You're going to see it on the unit test. You're going to see it on every standardized test you take that deals with world history. So this is going to come up a lot. We learn a lot about the Ottoman Empire. Make sure you take extensive notes. The goals today are to describe the key events and individuals associated with the Ottoman Empire, describe the political and religious conflict between the Safavid Empire and the Ottoman Empire, recognize the political and cultural achievements of the Mughal Empire in India. You need to read Chapter 17, Section 1. We're going to do pages 372 through 383, and then answer the questions on the student guide. And you're going to be doing the student guide by yourself, so make sure that you're filling that in, because I'm not going to be going over the majority of that with you. We also have to complete the Islamic Mosque online activity that's going to be on the next couple slides, and the online reading on the Taj Mahal, and that's actually pretty wonderful reading. If you know the story of the Taj Mahal, then you know that it's really, really romantic and also kind of freaky, but it's fun to learn about things like that, and getting some background on the Taj Mahal helps us really understand the empire at the time. And then you have to complete the checkpoint, and lastly, you're going to move on to the 6.4 discussion about cultural diffusion, and that's going to be a lot of opinion, your opinion, so it'll be very opinion-based. Make sure that you complete that discussion. You need to do a thorough post, making sure you answer every aspect of the prompt, and then you also need to respond and leave feedback for at least 3 of your classmates. And that doesn't mean just saying, great job, or this is wonderful. You actually have to converse with them and engage them, ask them questions about their opinion, find the similarities in what you have said as well as what they have said, and discuss those. Between the 14th and 17th centuries, 3 Muslim empires brought Islam to a new height of power and influence. The Ottoman Empire, centered in Turkey, the Safavid Empire in Persia, and the Mughal Empire in India. Muslims built grand palaces and mosques wherever they settled. A mosque is a spiritual center of Muslim community. We've talked about that. Mosques reflect the architectural style of the lands where they are built, but they also share some common features. We're going to do the Islamic Mosque activity in just a moment, but first we need to go through and do our textbook reading. I'm going to bring us back to the student guide real quick, and you will see we have areas to fill in for the Ottoman, the Safavid, and the Mughal empires as we go through. We're going to put in major events and achievements, the reasons for the decline if they're not already listed, and some key people. So let's get started. Asia's new empires. Between the 14th and 17th centuries, 3 Muslim empires emerged to rule much of Asia. 3 Muslim empires, the Ottoman, the Safavid, and the Mughal, brought Islam to new levels of power and influence. In these societies, diverse cultural, ethnic, and religious groups lived together under Muslim rulers. In China, by contrast, foreign rulers gave way to native Ming dynasty, which closed the empire to outside contacts, embraced China's ancient traditions, and tried to create a unified Chinese society. Nearby, feudal Japan fragmented into a world of feuding warlords. When the Tokugawa family reunited Japan in the 17th century, the Japanese closed their country to foreigners and focused on developing a culture free of outside influences. 3 Islamic empires. So we're going to start talking about the Ottoman Empire in just a moment. Mongol conquests devastated the Islamic world, but out of the rubble emerged 3 vigorous new Muslim empires. We talked about the 3, the Safavid, the Ottoman, and the Mughal. Of these, the first to rise and the last to decline was the Ottoman Empire, which I mentioned, very important to know about, which endured for more than 600 years. At its peak, the Ottoman Empire stretched around the Mediterranean Sea. It is a humongous empire. We will see it. It definitely rivals the Roman Empire, and the Mongol Empire as well. When the Mongols erupted out of Central Asia in the mid-13th century, many nomadic Turkish tribes fled ahead of them westward into Asia Minor, where they displaced an earlier wave of nomadic Turkish warriors, the Seljuks. These tribes then began raiding Byzantine territory. As recent converts to Islam, they called themselves the Ghazis, or warriors for the faith. In about 1260, a boy named Osman was born into one such Turkish clan. He grew up to be a fierce Ghazi, with other warriors flocking to his side. He built a small state in Asia Minor bordering on the Sea of Marmara. He titled himself Emir, an Arabic word for prince, and his dynasty was called the Ottomans, or Osman's line. Later, Ottoman rulers would claim the exalted title of Sultan. A series of Ottoman rulers kept expanding the empire, conquering domains in both Asia Minor and Europe. The Ottomans were among the first to use firearms in battle, including muskets and gigantic cannons. Their military success, however, was not a result of their weapons, but was due to their superbly trained troops, especially the highly disciplined elite corps of the Janissaries. By 1450, the Ottomans had captured most of Asia Minor and an extensive territory in Eastern Europe. You can see the Muslim Empire shows here not just the Ottomans, but the other empires included from North Africa to India. One small patch of land still eluded them, however, the city of Constantinople itself. We know this is modern-day Istanbul. By this time, the population of the ancient Byzantine capital had decreased from 1 million to about 40,000, and the Byzantine Empire itself had shrunk to only Constantinople and its suburbs. Despite many threats, the mighty walls of the city enabled its residents to hold out against invaders. Make sure you're reading these little excerpts here. They're fun and a nice way to engage you in history, but I'm not going to read them out loud to you right now. In 1453, a new Ottoman Sultan, Mehmet II, also spelled Mehmed, vowed to take the city. One reason he believed he could succeed where others had failed was that he had the world's biggest cannons, including a 27-foot monster that shot balls of iron weighing half a ton. How on earth did they get those in the cannon? Somebody's got to lift that, right? To attack Constantinople by sea as well as land, Mehmet also built a powerful navy of 125 ships. For almost 2 months, Ottoman cannons rained destruction on the city. Its inhabitants rallied around their leader, the Byzantine Emperor Constantine, who battled from the city walls and refused to surrender. As the Ottoman siege continued, some of the Byzantine's European allies slipped away. Finally, with a dwindling number of Byzantine defenders remaining to man 14 miles of walls, the Ottomans found an undefended gate and poured through. The Byzantine emperor drew his sword and led his soldiers in a hopeless charge, and the Ottoman soldiers cut him down. Soon after their emperor's death, the exhausted people of Constantinople surrendered. Upon entering the city, the victorious Sultan Mehmet went directly to Hagia Sophia, Remember that beautiful cathedral that we saw. He offered thanks to Allah and gave orders that the church be transformed into a mosque. He declared that the ancient Christian city of Constantinople would henceforth be a Muslim city, the capital of an Islamic empire. Over time, even the city's name changed. It eventually became known as Istanbul. Istanbul became a thriving, populous city with 500,000 inhabitants, including people of many creeds and races, living together more or less peacefully under laws enforced by the Ottoman rulers. In 1520, the greatest Ottoman ruler mounted the throne. Suleiman, the Magnificent, as he was later called, reigned for 46 years. Suleiman campaigned tirelessly to expand the already vast empire that his father had conquered. Suleiman seized the cities of Tripoli and Tunis and through them took control of the trade routes into Africa. He dominated the Mediterranean with a navy led by a dreaded admiral known to Europeans as Barbarossa, a name that means Redbeard, and you have heard this because he is a famous pirate. Suleiman also pushed deep into Eastern Europe, where he captured the city of Belgrade, and then marched on through Hungary. In 1529, his army arrived at the walls of Vienna, Austria. But winter came early that year, and Suleiman retired to his capital, vowing to conquer Vienna another year. As it happened, he never returned, and thus 1529, key date here, marked the peak of Ottoman expansion. At its greatest extent in the mid-1500s, the Ottoman Empire, the world's largest empire at the time, stretched from the Algiers in North Africa to the eastern edge of Mesopotamia. Europeans were awed by the might of Suleiman's armies, the prosperity of his realm, and the luxury and splendor of his court. In fact, it was the Europeans who called him the Magnificent. In his own domains, Suleiman was called the lawgiver because he forged an intricate set of regulations for administering his realm. The Sultan's code was needed because his subjects were diverse in both religion and geographic origin. They included Muslims, Jews, and Christians of many sects who came from Turkey, Arabia, Africa, Greece, Bulgaria, and Egypt, among other places. Suleiman's laws improved a system the Ottomans had long been developing. The laws organized various religious groups into self-governing communities. People of all religious communities were free to worship as they pleased and live by their own religious customs, as long as they paid a heavy tax imposed on non-Muslims. They also had to accept legal authority of the Sultan's chief minister, the vizier. The vizier administered a vast bureaucratic network that controlled the empire's many provinces. All parts of the complex Ottoman Empire were thus governed by a single set of regulations that kept order while allowing many different cultures to maintain their own ways. As Sultan, Suleiman spent lavishly to beautify Istanbul with splendid architecture. His chief builder, a former Janisari named Mimar Sinan, designed the Suleymaniye. From a distance, this magnificent mosque looks like a mountain of mushroom-shaped domes of different sizes. Nearby stand 4 graceful minarets, which are towers, from which Muslims chant the call to prayer. Sinan perfected a distinctive Ottoman style that other architects imitated. Ottoman craftsmen produced fine decorative art. Carpets, tapestries, marbled paper, dyed silk fabrics, ornamental clothing, and pipes carved from the soft white stone called meerschaum. Court poets wrote sophisticated works in Persian, the literary language of the region. Calligraphers worked with artists to produce elaborate handmade books. Under Suleiman's rule, Islamic culture flourished. Suleiman died in 1566. He was followed by a long line of mostly incompetent rulers who mismanaged the empire and wasted its wealth on indulgent luxuries. In trade and technology, the Ottomans began to lag behind the Europeans. Manufactured goods pouring in from Europe put Ottoman workshops out of business. You can see this is the mosque that was built in the 1550s, looking like those mushrooms of different size from afar. Very, very famous and beautiful. Lots of hard labor put into this architecture. As the Ottoman Empire weakened, its neighbors grew stronger. In the north, the Russian Empire began expanding. In the west, Austria began to take back territory the Ottomans had conquered in 1683. The Ottomans made a last desperate attempt to conquer Vienna, but suffered a severe defeat. The empire shrank as the Ottomans lost control of lands they had conquered in Europe and Africa. Even in its diminished state, the Ottoman Empire remained a significant political force in the 19th century and into the early 20th century. To the east of the Ottomans, a rival Muslim empire rose in Persia. The Safavids dominated the region between the Persian Gulf and the Caspian Sea, with their power concentrated in the area now called Iran. The Safavids started out as a religious brotherhood whose leader was protected by a corps of bodyguards called the Redheads because of the distinctive crimson caps they wore. In the late 15th century, when the head of the Safavids was assassinated, his son, a boy named Ismail, vowed to take revenge. In hunting down his father's enemies, Ismail turned the Safavid order into a political force, conquering one prince and tribe after another, until he and his redheads controlled all of Persia. In 1501, Ismail declared himself the Shah, or king of the new Safavid Empire. The Shah made the mistake of invading Asia Minor, the heartland of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Sultan at the time, Selim I, the first, sent out a great army to meet the invaders. In 1514, the two sides clashed near the Safavid capital on a field called Calderon. The Ottomans decisively won the battle because they had cannons and muskets, while the Safavids were still fighting with spears and bows. The Ottomans and Safavids were bitter enemies, partly because each empire wanted to expand into the other's territory, but there was also a religious reason for the conflict. Both the Ottomans and the Safavids were Muslims. This is really important because what you're about to read deals with the greatest division in Muslim religion. But the Ottomans belonged to the Sunni branch of Islam, while the Safavids belonged to the Shia branch. Shia Ismail declared Shiism to be the state religion of his empire, and he persecuted Sunni Muslims who refused to change their faith. The Ottomans resented the Shah's cruel treatment of their fellow Sunnis. The Ottomans retaliated by persecuting Shias, who sought refuge in Safavid Persia by the thousands. Shiism had deep roots in Persia, so the Safavids put Shiism at the heart of their society. For example, they declared Shia holidays to be national holidays. The Safavids promoted Persian culture and customs as a way to unify their people and set them apart from their Arab and Turkish neighbors. Following the defeat of Ismail at Calderon, for the next century, the Ottomans and Safavids fought an on-again, off-again war. Under Suleiman, the Ottomans seized large territories from the Safavids. But in 1587, a new leader came to power in Persia, Shah Abbas I. Abbas equipped his troops with muskets and cannons. His powerful and well-trained army won back most of the lands his people had lost to the Ottomans. Under Shah Abbas, Persian merchants and craftsmen prospered, and trade connected the Safavid Empire to distant lands. Wealthy people in Europe eagerly purchased costly Persian carpets with intricate designs. Other Persian exports included silk and beautiful pieces of pottery. Shah Abbas loved the arts. He supported many poets, painters, and architects. Artists illustrated illuminated books of poetry with Persian miniatures, detailed scenes painted with brush tips no bigger than a single cat hair. Architects built mosques covered with brilliant mosaic tile work and topped with shimmering pointed blue domes. This is an example here. It's absolutely gorgeous. To celebrate the glory of his empire, Shah Abbas built a new city, Isfahan. Here, public gardens dotted with fountains surrounded a huge rectangular park in the center of the city. Over one end of the park rose a magnificent mosque with a dome that glittered with colorful tiles. Trees shaded the wide boulevards running through the capital city. In Isfahan, all the wealth of Safavid culture was on display. Travelers from all over the world came to admire the Shah's beautiful, well-planned city. These visitors included many Europeans seeking opportunities for trade. Iran's exports to Europe included silk and pottery, and the intricately patterned and expensive Persian carpets were highly sought after by Europe's wealthy. Under Shah Abbas, the Safavid Empire reached its peak of power and influence. Persian artistic achievements also flourished during his reign. For these reasons, he is remembered as Abbas the Great. In northern India, during the same time that Suleiman ruled in faraway Istanbul, another Muslim empire came to power. The Mughal Empire, as it was known, was very different from the Ottoman and Safavid empires. In both Asia Minor, where the Ottomans ruled, and Persia, home of the Safavids, the great majority of people were Muslims. But in India, the vast majority of people practiced the religion of Hinduism. Back around the year 400, Hinduism had flourished in India under the Gupta Empire. But with the fall of the Gupta Empire around 500, India dissolved into many small kingdoms. Turkish invaders swept in from the north. One group of Muslim Turks eventually established a kingdom or sultanate in the northern Indian city of Delhi. Over the next few years, as one dynasty followed another, northern India became a society with a Muslim minority ruling a Hindu majority. In 1596, a conqueror named Babur toppled the Delhi Sultanate and founded a line of rulers known to history as the Mughals, who would establish the mightiest Islamic dynasty India had ever known. Mughal is a Persian pronunciation of Mongol. Among his ancestors, Babur counted two Mongol conquerors, Genghis Khan and Timur. When Babur took control of Delhi in 1526, he defeated a force 10 times bigger than his own. His army, equipped with guns and field artillery, had the advantage in weapons. His troops also included cavalry on horses and elephants. Babur was a fierce warrior of legendary physical strength, but he was also a musician, a gifted poet, and a writer whose autobiography is considered one of the great works of Turkish literature. Babur's grandson, Akbar, and you will know Akbar, hopefully you've heard of him, who ruled from 1542 to 1605, went on to conquer most of northern and central India. Under Akbar, in the second half of the 16th century, the Mughals built a large and powerful empire. Akbar dealt masterfully with central challenge of a small Muslim aristocracy trying to govern a massive population of Hindus and other non-Muslims. While earlier sultans had used force to control their subjects, Akbar practiced tolerance and inclusion. He abolished the tax imposed on non-Muslims by Islamic law. He drew leading Hindus into his government and made alliance with Hindu princes. He took Hindu women as wives. Muslim men could marry more than one woman, and he allowed them to practice their religion in his palace. Akbar's policies had a political purpose, but he was also genuinely curious about other religions. In his capital, Akbar built a hall for religious discussion where he had Muslim scholars debate Hindus, Zoroastrians, Christians, and others. Akbar supported the arts, especially painting and architecture. Using his immense wealth, he lured some of the finest Persian painters away from the Safavid court to found a school of miniature painting in India. This is possibly about to be my favorite part in all of world history, one of them at least. The Mughals respected the vibrant culture of the Safavids and learned from it in many ways. For example, Mughal architects combined with Persian, Turkish, and Hindu styles. They brought the domes and arches of Islamic architecture to India to build a stunning variety of mosques, pavilions, and forts using red sandstone, white marble, and multicolored ceramic tiles as building materials. Mughal architecture culminated in the Taj Mahal, a mausoleum, which is a large, elaborate tomb, built in the 1630s by Akbar's grandson, Shah Jahan, for his beloved wife, Mumtaz, who died at a young age. A perfectly symmetrical masterpiece of white marble, the Taj Mahal is surrounded by gardens that imitate paradise as imagined by Muslim tradition. An Indian poet once described this monument as a teardrop on the cheek of time. The India of the great Mughal rulers produced bountiful harvests and abundant handicrafts. Trade links connected India to markets from China to Western Asia. In its day, the Mughal Empire was among the richest empires on earth. The Mughals thrived while they managed to integrate different religions and peoples into a single whole. Their decline began when they abandoned policies of tolerance. Akbar's great-grandson persecuted non-Muslim religions. He reimposed crushing taxes on Hindus and tore down their temples. He managed to suppress rebellions, but the sultans who followed him inherited a legacy of growing anger and unrest. By 1750, the Mughal Empire had splintered from within and was vulnerable to conquest. We're going to read about the Taj Mahal, and it is just an amazing accomplishment and a beautiful story. So you want to go through and fill in your student guide. We talked about the Ottomans, put in some key individuals, their major events and achievements, as well as the decline, and make sure you mention that attack on Vienna. The Safavids and the Mughals, same thing, and then you're going to go through and answer some of these questions. The last thing you're going to do is do the Taj Mahal online reading activity, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to pull back up our lesson. So we want to go through. It says, click Islamic Mosque to see some of the features common to most mosques. The mosque is perhaps the largest in India. It was built by the Mughal emperor in the mid-1600s. When you have finished, follow the directions in the student guide to begin the lesson. When you have completed the read activity, come back online to view the architectural details of the Taj Mahal. While not a mosque, the Taj Mahal is a prime example of Mughal architecture which combines elements of several cultures. So let's do our Islamic mosque activity. And this is just brief. All it's doing is showing us aspects of the Islamic mosque. And we can scroll over and see. The minbar is a platform or raised pulpit where the imam stands to give his sermon and teach about Allah. So that's in the center. The courtyard, it's an interior courtyard that provides places for groups of Muslims to meditate and pray. There's a fountain back in the center. The dome, Islamic domes are round or onion-shaped. Artists often decorate the exterior and interior of a dome with elaborate mosaics. Iwan and Mihrab. An Iwan is a large vaulted arch that opens into the courtyard where worshippers gather. Inside this Iwan, a decorated niche called a Mihrab marks the direction of Mecca. Muslims consider the Mihrab the most important element of the mosque. It has a pointed arch, often bordered by calligraphic passages from the Quran. And lastly, the minaret is a tower where the crier calls Muslims to prayer 5 times a day. Some mosques have several minarets. Let's go and move forward. The Taj Mahal. Architects of the Mughal Empire in India brought the domes and arches of Islamic architecture to India and built a stunning variety of mosques, pavilions, and forts. The culmination of the Mughal architecture in the Taj Mahal, built as a tomb for the wife of a Mughal emperor. We're going to click through the slides and look. So the Taj Mahal is characteristic of Islamic architecture, but it incorporates features of the architecture of Indian religions. Islamic architects preferred slightly pointed arches and domes over mounded ones. The arches of the Taj Mahal led the eye upward, up toward the domes. Deep arches cast dramatic shadows against the white marble and also light the interior. A gold spire topped by a moon that creates a trident shape adds height to the main dome. A trident often symbolizes the Hindu god Shiva. Open balconies and onion domes top the minarets. Decorative tips atop the domes extend the height. Look at how beautiful the interior is there. It's just amazing. 8 small chambers inside the Taj Mahal are decorated with elaborate inlay designs made from precious and semi-precious stones. To create the intricate inlay panels that line the interior, artists used precious and semi-precious stones such as sapphire, jade, turquoise, lapis lazuli, I don't know what that is, and jasper. The colorful stones contrast starkly against the white marble. Calligraphers inscribed passages from the Quran into the marble inlaid with jasper. These calligraphic panels decorate the surface of the building. Sculptors who specialized in floral patterns carved delicate marble designs. It's very, very beautiful. I hope that you take time to read the story of the Taj Mahal because it is a beautiful and kind of freaky and sad story. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to do your checkpoint, and then you're going to go through and you're going to do the discussion. So you have two spots here where the discussion comes up. You need to read through the discussion lesson, and then you actually have to click on the 6-4 discussion to be able to put in your post. All right, I'm going to bring back our slideshow for just a moment. So as I mentioned, you need to complete the exit ticket, which I'm going to give to you in just a moment, the checkpoint for 6-3, and the discussion. If you have questions, please make sure you reach out to me so that I can help you before you get started and move further into the unit. Up here, you're going to want to click on or copy and paste this link at the top. This link is what you will use for your exit ticket, and that allows me to know that you completed and watched through this and are ready to move forward. That is all I had for you today. I will post another recording with your 6-5 lesson in a few moments.